I've had the idea for this video for a few months now, but I think as time moves on, the topic is becoming more and more true. What I mean is that a few days ago, I randomly decided that I wanted to try out game design. And in less than a week, I've come much farther and feel far more confident in my ability to make a game than I ever expected to in my whole life, let alone in such a short time span. This video isn't just about my reawakening as an artist, because I wouldn't be where I am now creatively if I hadn't shifted my mindset about the world and the way I see myself. As recently as last year, I was at my lowest point. I had an unhealthy overattachment to friends who clearly didn't feel the same deep connection that I did, to the point where when they weren't giving me constant 24/7 attention, I ended up lashing out at them and pushed them away. I'd been holding in disdain for one friend in particular who I did genuinely like as a person, but what I didn't realize at the time was that I was projecting my worst traits onto them, and eventually those suppressed feelings exploded into passive-aggressive tweets and Discord statuses about them, until I finally messaged them myself and told them how I felt. And this whole situation made this person's own depression and anxiety far worse. But I was so caught up in my own self-loathing and lashing out at my friends that I wasn't even willing to consider their feelings. This led me to feel even worse about myself, and over time I decided I needed to begin to start looking within and facing my demons. Nothing was going to change if I didn't figure out why I was acting the way I was. I've made other videos on my channel getting deeper into this part of my journey, but the short of it is that I had little to no confidence or trust in myself for as long as I could remember. I'd spent my whole life trying to find something outside of myself that would make me feel whole. I just craved constant stimulation. People, food, games, movies, shows, social events, church, porn, stories. I'd been spending so much time trying to find happiness and a sense of peace in these things because I dared not face what was within, and none of those things ever lasted very long. It always ended up feeling so hollow and fleeting, but I wasn't willing to consider why. I just kept chasing my desires. And so what all of those years of ignoring myself eventually ballooned into was becoming a worse person than I ever imagined I could be. I ended up hurting people. So I spent months of deep introspection and self-reevaluation, and I came to a realization. That thing I was looking for, that eternal sense of love, belonging, purpose, peace, all of the above, that could only be found within. I look at it this way. Who is it that allows me to feel the emotions that I've felt in my life? Who's the one that's always been there with me, experiencing all of the joy and pain and everything else in between? Well, it was me. It was always me. That thing I was looking for was within. I didn't have any one defining moment where I finally felt like it clicked. This was a revelation that occurred to me in bursts. I've said this before in my other videos, but it isn't any less true now. Despite everything I've been through in my life, I can now confidently, without a doubt, say that I love myself. I've forgiven myself for the things that I have or haven't done, and for how much of an asshole I've been to people who didn't deserve it. And I've forgiven myself for ignoring myself for so many lonely, insecure years, and for neglecting my true self, my creative, artistic self. I still have issues to work out, but with this, I can finally move on and create. Now that I've achieved a level of peace and self-love that I had never even considered possible before, I remember when I was a kid, the impossible things I used to dream of, how much I shamelessly adored stories, how magical the world felt. I remember a time where I just loved experiences, where I wasn't afraid to just be myself. Back when I wasn't afraid to just enjoy the things I enjoyed, without worrying about the fear of missing out or being judged for being different or just being myself. Honestly, I finally feel free again. I've rediscovered this feeling of having a crazy, unconventional idea and just going for it. I've given another shot at creative pursuits that I had tried over and over again throughout my life before eventually giving up on them and thinking, I'm not smart enough, or this is too hard, I can't do it. Now when I pick up a pencil to draw, open up a Google Doc to write a story, or have an idea for a game, I really feel like I can do it. I honestly don't care if whatever I make will be perfect or not, or even good. I certainly do still get frustrated, but the key difference now is that I no longer give up. I've rediscovered the ability to act despite failure, sometimes even because of it. Because of my trauma from growing up and being denied and judged for who I was, I forgot all of that. It hurt to be laughed at when I did something silly or made a mistake. It felt like the universe was collapsing in on itself when I'd be yelled at or cursed at for doing something outside of what was expected of me. Even people just looking at me a weird way just sent shivers down my spine. I've always been very hypersensitive of people's outlook on me, and that's like genuinely ruined my life. But now I'm making an effort to not let that affect me as much. I definitely still can't help those instincts I have of just being afraid of what people think of me, but I have a much healthier approach to dealing with that now because I do deal with it. I don't just ignore it anymore and pretend like it isn't there. I formed a habit of facing my problems as soon as they come up, and while it hurts and is scary in the moment, it definitely feels much healthier than what I used to do. Because of my trauma, I had grown to spend my time doing the bare minimum and just coasting through life, feeling envious of those who were creating amazing things, hating myself for not being able to achieve the same things. And eventually, I forgot that I was even capable of being creative. I genuinely used to think that I didn't have a creative bone in my body. I just completely forgot that I had that passion. And you know what? I still haven't even come close to achieving anything like some of my favorite works of art. But honestly, I really don't care. It really just feels good to create again. Now after so long, I can finally just enjoy creating and playing for the sake of it, just like I did when I was a kid. And ironically enough, because of this mindset shift, only now am I making things that I'm proud of. I'm not going live anymore and desperately screaming into a microphone hoping to be funny to as many people as possible and finding fulfillment in being a class clown. I definitely still have my sense of humor, but it's not the only thing that I feel like gives me worth anymore. Now, I can spend more than a couple hours or just a couple of minutes on something before giving up. In fact, I am obsessed with, hell, in love with creating now. I literally can't stop. I'm addicted to it now. If anything, my main source of frustration these days comes from my disability holding me back from doing even more than what I already do. I'm currently into drawing, writing, making videos, streaming, and most recently I've gotten into game development. I'm not great at any of these things by any means, and sometimes it does irritate me that I can't focus on just one to become a master at it, but I've come to realize that I just have to accept how I am and to trust my workflow. If I try to force myself to focus on one thing too much, I end up burning out very quickly and don't feel like doing that thing for a long time. But now that I'm far more in touch with my true self, I can trust that when I wake up every day, I will end up doing exactly what I need to for that day. At least as far as what my weak body will allow. I can't do schedules and I can't make deadlines for myself because it feels like every day I wake up, there's always something new to discover. I feel like I'm holding myself back by trying to stick to one thing and being stiff and stubborn. I realize that I need to be free and allow myself to be influenced by my environment. I need to be less like dirt and more like water. I've become far better at adapting to unexpected things in life. Until recently, my default reaction used to be to panic and be paralyzed when something came up. I would either rush to make it go away without any real plan, or be so overwhelmed by it that I put it off or never end up doing anything about it at all. For one of the games that I want to make, Project Vega, I think I want the tagline for it to be something like, "Follow your instincts, not your impulses." I don't know whether or not this will even have anything to do with the gameplay, but this game is highly inspired by Sonic and Black Clover tonally, and I want to imbue the main character with that sort of free-spirited, true-to-themselves attitude that Sonic and Asta have. I like to write characters who remind me where my head should be at. That tagline comes from a place of knowing that I make my best decisions not from panicking or impulsiveness, but from taking the time to think and trusting myself to do the right thing. I think modern storytelling has a stigma around it where every character needs to be deeply conflicted in some way, but I think we've lost appreciation for strong, one-note characters who we can look up to and always trust to be themselves. I think it's important to have fictional characters who we can look at as inspiration, even if they're not the most realistic, but I think that's the beauty of fiction, is we can write whatever the fuck we want without being held back by reality. But we can use what we're inspired by in those stories to help us out in our real lives. To be honest, I'm very blessed to have a family who is willing and able to help me take care of my basic living needs since I've been disabled. And I have no idea where I would be at mentally if I didn't have to worry about making ends meet. I don't have to worry about a job anymore, and I have very few responsibilities, since some days I can barely stay out of bed. But I like to think even if I did return to the typical self-sustaining adult lifestyle, that with my new outlook on life, I would be in a much better place than I was. Before, I was obsessed with success and constantly needing more, but now, I really don't need much past the bare necessities and ability to be creative. I still can't do everything I want to do creatively. I want to do more streams, and I want to be able to sing, but those things are a bad idea right now because of my health. For now, I do the best that I can do. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about how far I've come this last year, and I just wanted to share how happy I am now that I'm finally a creative person again. God forbid if you want to hear me yap even more, don't forget to subscribe and check out my YouTube streams or my Twitch streams. Right now I'm doing multi-streams across Twitch and YouTube, so you can really catch me on either one. So thank you very much for watching, and if there's one takeaway that I want you to take away from this video, I think it would be that if I can be creative, I think anybody can. In case you were having doubts about yourself. But anyways, dinos, you take care. Have a good one.